Hello everyone, it's Robin the Delta Crafter, and I want to thank you for joining me for another video on my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be talking about my ink blending swatch book, well, ring I guess you can say, that I make. I recently showed this during the Card Maker Success Summit, and someone asked me in the live chat group if I had a video on how I made this swatch book. And I thought I did. I thought I had a separate video, but I think it might just be a part of a video. And so I decided to go ahead and make a separate standalone video on how I make my my swatch book, the swatch ring. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. If you follow me for any amount of time, then you know that ink blending is my jam. It is my very favorite, my most favorite crafting technique for paper crafting. I love it. Most of the time I'm a traditional distress ink user and blender. But I do have distress oxides. I have some Hero Arts inks. And I just released a previous video where I talked about me jumping into the Pink Fresh Studio inks, which I absolutely love. So most of well, actually all of the combinations that I have on here are either distress or distress oxide inks. So most of them are regular distress inks, but I do have some distress oxide inks in here as well. And to be honest with you, the when you're talking about distress and distress oxide inks, even if like this particular one on the top here is distress ink, this could be recreated with distress oxide. So as long as you're staying within the same family, it really doesn't matter if it's distress ink or distress oxide. But because distress inks are the regular distress inks are the ones that I use most often, most of my samples or examples here are made with distress inks. So let's talk about the construction of the booklet. As I've said before, when I'm talking about ink blending, paper does matter. I like to use Neenah Classic Crest Solar White in 80-pound weight for my card panels. I usually buy a pack of this off of Amazon, and I'll link all the products that I talk about today. I'll link below. Not link below. I have a link, have them linked on a blog post that will correspond with this video. But I usually buy a pack of 80-pound Neenah Classic Crest 80-pound solar. Let me say that again. Neenah Classic Crest Solar White 80-pound cardstock, and I will take a good portion of that cardstock to a office supply store and have them cut it down for me into card panels, so that when I'm ready to make my cards, then I have card panels. I'll show you a couple here. I'll have card panels. That's the wrong paper. That is alcohol ink paper. Sorry about that. I'll have card panels, just a bunch of them already cut and ready to go. So I do that, but then I'll leave some that's not cut up either. And so this is one of those pieces. And I do that so that if I want to do a larger project, I have some whole pieces of paper to do that, or some slimline cards, 5x7. I just have some options, some paper left in the full-size sheet that gives me options to create different kinds of cards. So what I do with that piece of cardstock, that piece of Neenah Classic Crest, is I take it and I cut it into 8 equal size little panels. And then I usually keep some of these blank panels on hand so that, like this, so that when I come up with a ink blending combination, or I find an ink blending combination, I'll have some panels to quickly swatch up, and then I can add them to my swatch ring. So this is the measurements that I use. I take a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and I cut it in half the long way, or for us educators, that'd be hot dog. And then I cut it in half again. So I make my little 4 card panels, and then I take those card panels and cut those in half again. So you end up with 8 different panels. So I'm going to come in and kind of show you the measurements that each line or each cut is made at. So if you make these 4 cuts in this way, you should end up with 8 card swatches that'll be ready to go. So then you should end up with a small stack like this. Now I will, while I'm in a cutting mood or something like that, then I'll go, like I said, I'll go ahead and cut up quite a few so I can have these on hand. The other thing that you are going to need is, I like to keep my swatches kind of bound. So I have a loose binder ring. You can find these at any office supply store. They're going to usually kind of come in a pack, but I have a loose binder ring here, and I punch a hole in the top right corner. I'm sorry, top left corner, and then I just slide them onto the ring. There's no rhyme or reason to my ring, because I started doing this a long time ago, and I finally settled on a method that works for me. So I just flip through. If I have a certain idea in mind, then I just flip through until I find an ink blending combination that I think will work for my card, and then I go from there. But what I will do is I will open up my binder ring. So you just pull it apart, and then I'll take one of the cards that I already have hole punched, and I'll lay it on top of an unpunched card, and then I'll take my hole punch and punch a hole in there so that there is consistency in where my holes are on my swatches. So that's the basics of how I made my swatch ring. I have a couple of ink blending combinations that I want to add to my ring. So now we're gonna get into making those here on this video. Let's go. So I'm gonna start out by doing a ink blending combination that kind of will give me either a galaxy kind of option or even a deep water beach scene kind of option. So I'm going to be using cracked pistachio, peacock feathers, mermaid lagoon, and black soot. So I'm going to start out using these 4 colors for this blend. So one of the things that I always pay attention to when I'm ink blending is the number of colors that I'm using. Of course, the more colors that you use, the less space that you're going to want to take up when you are ink blending. Another thing that makes ink blending really easy, whether you're doing it for a card or for a swatch book or whatever, is whatever the surface that you use that you're going to be doing the ink blending on. I'm using this glass craft mat from Glassboard Studio. I just recently got this. And I have a review video on this. I've had it for over a month now, but I absolutely love this craft mat because I am a big ink blender, and this is really easy for me to ink blend on. I don't have to have any other items or anything to use. No other type of slick surface or anything. This craft mat is all I need. So I'm going to take the cracked pistachio. We're going to start with that. And I'm going to apply that to the top, probably 1/4 of this panel. I'm also using these smaller blending brushes. This is a set from Simon Says Stamp. I'm also using a small one from Hero Arts, but I'm going to be using these smaller brushes because, again, I have smaller space because it's a small piece of paper. So I want to make sure that I have enough, that I get all the colors on here. So when I'm working with a smaller brush head, it takes up less space, which means that I'm more likely to get all my colors on here. So let's go. So I'm just going to come off the paper and come on to the paper, and notice that I'm swirling in both clockwise and counterclockwise direction. I'm going to come in from all the sides and get a good ink coverage of ink on this swatch. Okay, so I think that's plenty of the cracked pistachio. Now it's time to move on to peacock feather. If you've ever been to the Caribbean where the water is crystal clear, you notice that some of the water sometimes really does look green. And so that's where I think the cracked pistachio could come in for and offer and work well for a deep water kind of ink blending session. So we've got our peacock feather down. And I'm also using my ink stands or ink stand because this is helping me keep the ink pad in place while I ink blend. So I'm gonna come in now with the Mermaid Lagoon. This is a beautiful teal kind of peacock kind of blue color. And it's blending really nicely with this peacock feather. You want to make sure that you get a good blend between the colors. That helps tremendously. And even if it's starting to come together, but it kind of looks kind of splotchy, don't worry. Because distress inks are dye inks, they are dyeing the paper. So you have to give them a little bit of time to even out and to for everything to kind of settle in. So now I'm going to come in with the black soot. And for this, because this is such a dark color, I'm going to start out kind of light with a light hand. And then I can come in and layer it up thicker. I don't want to come in too heavy because I can't take it back, but I can add on to it. So if I was going to use this color combination for a galaxy kind of combination, I certainly would not do it in straight lines like this, bands of color. I would come in and put some peacock feather down, or I'm sorry, cracked pistachio down in some random places, and then start to add and build up the color with the additional colors from there. Randomly around on my piece of paper, and that way I would have some little pockets of the black soot, some pockets of the cracked pistachio that would be peeking through. I would just have those all over the place, and then that would lend itself more to a nebular type of galaxy type of background, rather than right now it kind of does look like you're going deeper and deeper into the levels of the sea. So this is our finished swatch. So now what I do is I take my swatch, I flip it over, and then I write on the back. So I just write with a fine point Sharpie what type of ink I use and the colors that I use. So I just put distress ink, and then I'll put cracked pistachio. I usually put it in the order that it falls on the paper. So cracked pistachio is first. Then peacock feathers. Mermaid Lagoon. And finish with black soot. And there we have the new card or combination to add to the swatch book. So now I'm going to come in, I'm going to take this top swatch off. I'm going to lay my new swatch up under there, and then I'm going to take my hole punch, handheld hole punch, punch my hole. So now this one is going to be the one on the top. And there we have it. So this is the process that I use to create my entire swatch book. I am working on some digital products that will be available, that will be discussing different types of ink combinations, as well as some of the techniques that I use for ink blending. So be on the lookout for those things. I want to thank you for joining me today. If you haven't followed me on YouTube, I would love it if you would join the Delta Crafter family here on YouTube, as well as on Instagram and Facebook. Also, like I mentioned previously, I have a website, thedeltacrafter.com, that has a blog on it, and I'll have some more information on there. So make sure that you sign up for the email list so you can stay in the loop on all things Delta Crafter. If you have enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, and I would love to see you back here for my next video. Until next time, everybody, bye-bye. Enjoy.